Okay, attempt number 3. Because last time I accidentally quit out of the game when I looked at the achievements, so that's an absolute classic. But okay, guys, hello and welcome. I've been doing a lot of coaching recently, and it's kind of inspired me to do some educational and informative videos. And the video that I'm going to do today is just one on map control. Um, so what I really want to kind of discuss and make you guys think about is, so when you take map control, like what does that kind of mean? And what do you need to do when you take map control? Because like it's very easy to say, and I know a lot of casters like Viper, like well Viper's not a caster, but you know he is occasionally, and T90 kind of go on about map control. So like I kind of this game is a game from Slam, and his entire game plan is about taking map control. So I thought this is kind of a really good replay to analyze to kind of determine like, okay, so if you do take map control, like what are your goals and what do you need to do and what can possibly go wrong? So I think this game kind of perfectly demonstrates the problem with sacrificing, or sacrificing your economy and not having a really like direct strategy of winning the game. So we're going to see Slam play as the Saracens, and he's getting this market up nice and fast, which is going to speed up because not a whole lot happens in the feudal age. And we're going to watch it from Slam's POV so we can kind of understand his decision making a little bit. Yeah, so he's picked Saracens here, and Saracens against Bulgarians is quite a good matchup because I think it's kind of tricky for Bulg to deal with the Arb and Heavy Camel, or even maybe Mamluk, if you can get the Mamluk Hussar is pretty strong as well. So it's kind of tricky. Actually, maybe Begains could work against that, but it's tricky to say. So yeah, it's kind of hard for Bulg to deal with Saracen's Power Spike in Archers, and it's also tricky for them to deal with Saracen's unit comp. So this is, in theory, a really good matchup for Slam, but the way he plays it kind of forces himself to try and get some economic damage. Let's have a look at his scouting. So he's not scouted too much so far. Obviously, it's quite easy to wall this map, and he was defensive with his scout to begin with. Okay, let's have a look at these archers. Okay, so now he moves up. Okay, so we see only 3 farms. He's got 12 on gold. Or I think that was 11 maybe. I don't think I saw that perfectly. Okay, yeah, so he's going for this. He sold his stone. So again, there's no economic follow-up. This push is, or at least, maybe not this push exactly, but his future game plan is to take out the map control and do some damage. So let's see what happens. Okay, so he goes in. Okay. Gets through the palisade, and what do we see? Yeah, do we see some farms? And okay, Valas has the same wall. But if we look, let's take the fog of war off. We see what he's forced with his map control and his map presence. He's forced a siege workshop. He's forced Valas to get +2 defense. He's now getting wheelbarrow as well, but yeah, it makes sense. And I think as well, Valas is about to click husbandry. So Valas has had a pretty big response to this already. So he's already done a little bit of damage, but he's not done any direct damage. So like he needs to ideally find a way. Again, he's doing the smart thing here, running back, because I think he knows that he could get cleaned up by 4 or 5 knights with +2 because Bulgarians get it cheaper. So he's running back to his camels and his reinforcements. And yeah, now he needs to go again because his entire map control is his entire game plan is predicated on taking map control. So again, like he has to do damage here. I think as well he's going to build. Yep, there's a university, perfect. So again, he's going very aggressive. You know, he's building all the buildings that cost a lot of wood at the expense of his economy. And what we're going to see is what happens if you take map control like Slam, but you don't find a way, or you don't try really to do any real significant damage. So I'm just going to see. Yeah, let's have a look at what Vance is doing. Let's slow this down. Okay, so Vance is adding the TC now. So this is the kind of time where the difference between the players isn't big right now. Honestly, it's kind of trivial. I think maybe Slam has wheelbarrow. I'm not too sure. It's only a couple villagers. It's not the biggest deal. Like the game right now is dead even, but Slam has basically entire and complete map presence. Like it's very hard for Valas to move out here. He's doing a great job with the monks, obviously, and doing a great job of not actually taking any like direct economic damage. But Slam still has full map control. Okay, so let's get back on Slam's POV. Okay, so yeah, Slam again committing to bloodlines. He committed to the university, but I don't think he actually researches ballistics for a while. So again, what's the game plan here? Again, we're shooting the scorpion. Like again, we don't really have perfect vision either. So I think Slam at this point, I don't really know what's going through his head because again, if we take the fog of war off, we're seeing Valas build another TC, and again, like Slam, he probably has the resources to buy some stone and build TCs if he wants to, but he's choosing not to do that, right? And what is going to happen when we keep this game sped up is what Valus is going to take a big economic lead, and that's not always terrible if you are taking map control. The problem is if you do take map control, you have to think, okay, like what am I doing with the map, and is the map control worth, being down 12 villagers? So if we look right now, again, Slam up 15 vills, Slam down 15 vills, sorry, and Valus is up 15 vills, obviously. But again, like I'm saying, Slam has full map control. But what does this really mean, right? Like, I think this game in particular shows that if you do take map control at the expense of your economy, you need a really precise follow-up. So, like, what could Slam have done differently to make this push do more damage? And that's a very tricky question, because I think Valus actually plays this really well. But also at the same time, with the way Slam is playing, Slam essentially doesn't try to do any damage, which I think is a strategic flaw. So we have a look again. He's kind of poking here. Nice snipe on the monk there. But again, very passive, right? Like for someone who's spent, the past 15 minutes, controlling the map and sacrificing their economy for army, he's very passive in the way he takes these fights, right? So ideally, like you'd be looking there to jump on the monks and get a great engagement, but obviously it's very risky, so maybe he didn't want to take the risk. Okay, another way that you can kind of use map control to your advantage, and I think the most common way, is through mangonel pushing. I think honestly this is one of the ways where Slam could have gained an advantage. Honestly, like a siege shop here would be perfect and try and pressure these two TCs. But the problem is, again, like Valus has played this really well, so he's going to go for the Crepos follow-up, which will be able to kind of take... it won't be able to take map control, but it'll be able to defend his base, so that Slam's map control becomes less meaningful. And if we look at the villager count, like I think Slam, yep, there's a TC, another one will come up over here. But again, this is already so far behind that he still needs to do damage. Like Valus will get to that kind of 110, 120 volt snowball like a minute or two before Slam, and that's just going to mean way more resources, way more production. And honestly, like this kind of shows this game right here is exactly why when you do take map control at the expense of your economy, you need to have a strong follow-up. Like again, if you are going 1 TC for this long, you have to be doing something like either a crazy YOLO castle drop, you need to be doing something like monks and mangonels, or you need to be doing like maybe fast sim trap. But there are probably more options, but like I think those are like the main ones. It's just that Slam's kind of idea this game is just kind of inherently flawed, because he didn't have the follow-up in mind. He just thought he could win the game with the damage, and despite having a much better civ with a much better like army composition, again he still doesn't find the right response. Again, Valus is just booming, right? Like again, Valus has played this superbly defensively. That should be said. But again, this Crepos didn't come up until like 17 or 18 minutes, right? And during all of that time, like Slam could have been finding a way to pressure and do more damage. and if he couldn't do that, he needed to change his game plan. Okay, so look at the follow-up. Okay, TCs, let's just speed this up a little bit, because again, the game kind of follows a similar pattern, right? Like, Slam is already so far behind now that I think this game is tricky. I think he needs like 4 or 5 TCs. The thing is, again, he prioritizes this imp timing, right? But again, what are we doing with an imp timing? I think this is another important point. If you do have map control, another natural follow-up is a castle on a hill and then traps. But again, this isn't the follow-up from Slam, right? This is what I'm saying. Like, when you take the map control at the expense of your economy, you need to have a very clear follow-up. This is something that I see from my students quite a bit, right? Like, they'll even take map control in a load of different settings. So, like, for example, I had a student like play. I think it was Tyler against Celts, and they had full map control with Cav Archers. They actually played really well macro-wise and economically, but the problem was they weren't really using their map control. So like they had full control of the map. Like the opponent wasn't really building units and just booming. And what happened? Like Celt just boomed 40C, got to like Hal Bollinger. I think it was actually Scorpion in that game, and just killed him. But all that student had to do was go forward and build siege and use the map control. So it's just a really important point. Like again, if you are being an aggressive player, that is absolutely fine. Just make sure you're being aggressive with intent. Because I think this game shows what happens. Like even though Slam has a better civ, even though Slam started booming like it was like 5 to 10 minutes before their opponent, even though Slam does get to a decent economic number, like he can never recover from this economic snowball. And we're gonna see what happens. Obviously that's partly down to Valus playing well, but that's also partly because if you do play like this and get no damage with your map control at the expense of your economy, you are just going to lose in a lot of cases, even with a crushing sid matchup. Okay, so let's speed this up a little bit. So again, in this villager count, again, 30 villagers is huge. Even though, yeah, we're going to see a lot of great fights for Slam as well in a second. So this fight, Connects basically feel upgraded, but Slam commits anyway. These camels are pretty strong. So yeah, 110 vills against 75. Again, huge vill difference. Again, Slam idling all his town centers. So again, he's doing the same thing that he was doing in Castle Stage. Prioritizing the map control over his economy, even building... very strange, even building a demo. Fair enough. Okay, Valis again. Okay, we're going to pause the game. And I'm going to make sure that I don't mess up and return to my replays. So let's go to the stats. And let's have a look. Okay, so look, 5,000 difference here. 700 in favor of Slam. 2,000 difference here. So what's that, 7,000? And yeah, about 3,000. So, okay, so Valis is up a net about, like, what, 4,000 resources? And a lot of that is food as well, which is, okay, let's not return to replays, let's return to map. Let's not make the same mistake. So yeah, food is also a really kind of tricky resource to get, because obviously it comes in at a set rate that is slower than most of the other resources. If I think that's right. Because obviously, like, you can get things like gold mining or, like, wood upgrades, but you can't have the same, you don't really have the same percent bonus for farming. You only have handcart and wheelbarrow. So food is a very, very valuable resource, as is gold. But yeah, we're going to see like 40 vil difference. And it doesn't matter. Like, I think this game is so perfect at demonstrating my point, because it doesn't matter that Slam has a completely crushing set matchup, where like Bulgarians, you know, should really struggle against like this army comp right now. But like Slam just doesn't have the resources. Like he simply just doesn't have. Look, he's got what, 90 villagers, 3 rangers. Like he just doesn't have the numbers, right? All that happens is Slam gets outproduced, outmassed, and he can't do anything. And again, this is why when we do take the map, we need a clear vision. Okay, so let's have a look. So we're just going to see this play out. We're going to speed this up big time, because what happens is kind of clear. We know that this build count is so different, and again, despite like you can just see how difficult it is for Valis to engage it. Just how bad. It's not necessarily how bad his army comp is. I think he did the best, you know, with a bad situation, obviously, with a bad civ matchup. But like, his civ doesn't really have an answer for this, right? I guess when he gets the, I think he goes for oranges at some point. When he gets the oranges out, he does have an answer. But again, look at this. Just let's go on his POV. Okay, look at the difference. We have 8 stables, 12 stables. We've got what, 5 barracks, and obviously the crep posts. And what does Slam have? He's got 4 rangers, right? And a couple of stables. Sorry, I'm missing a big fight. But just to demonstrate, again, if you are just outnumbered 3-1 in production buildings and production capability, then it doesn't matter if you've got a better civ, right? Okay. And yeah, we're just going to see this castle. He's going to build it over here. This is actually a terrible fight. Again, this is what I'm talking about. This civ matchup is so tricky for Bulgarians. But Valis is still going to win this game. Spoilers, obviously. And again, that is largely due to the kind of... I don't know if it was a misplay. I mean, obviously it was a misplay in hindsight, but like the way that Slam played, like allowed Valis to win this game. Okay, so now Slam's catching up, but we're gonna see in a second. Let's just speed this up a little bit more. Okay, when Valis gets all his upgrades, it starts getting a little bit better for Valis. Okay, is this a good fight? Yeah. Okay, so obviously these are Stirrups Hussar, and this fight. Well, it probably isn't going to win for Valis. All Valis wants to do here is just reduce this Ard mass. And if he reduces this Ard mass, then the civ is no longer scary. And let's have a look at the Slam's economic follow-up. Yeah, again, we don't have the same level of economic expansion as Valis has, right? Like Valis has got 64 on food. Look at this economy, right? And it's perfectly set up for the late game. Look at it. Honestly, this is so nice. They're having this castle and all these farms next to the castle. All these farms protected by crep posts. Like, this is really nice economic management. And again, like, just getting to like 130 vils, like 4 or 5 minutes. I don't know if it's that much. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You know, it's a huge amount of resources that you're gaining. If we see here, like, again, just kind of, this is the kind of the point in the game where Valis becomes dominant on the map. And again, this is kind of, you could predict this from, you know, like 15 minutes ago, right? Just because of the way the game is going economically. And this is why it's so important, like I was saying, that when you take the map control, you find a way to punish your opponent. And if you can't punish your opponent, then you've made a mistake because either their map is too good, it doesn't suit the map, it doesn't suit your civ. There'll be some kind of reason why, situationally, that was the wrong decision. Okay, and we're taking a fight here. Again, this matchup is very tricky for Bulgarians. And yeah, okay. So this castle is really important because again it has his relics as well. So Sam really doesn't want to lose that. A bit sloppy of Alice to lose these traps, but if this goes down, it's worth it. What is Sam doing? Yeah, he should have been able to kill this trap as well. Kind of strange that he didn't. Again, just look at this production. Again, even Vil count now, but like I said, the game's already kind of swung momentum-wise. He's already lost this kind of killer army that should have been able to crush Valis, but again, he just didn't have the right numbers in the right time or the right kind of production to follow it. At this point, Valis is now on the superior army comp. Because he has Hab Onager, and at this point, the game is essentially over. Yeah, we're gonna see rating as well. I mean, honestly, like, Bulgarian late game is really strong, but obviously, like, I think Saracens should be able to compete, and maybe not at this point in the game, but they should be easily able to compete in, like, early Imperial Age, where Slam kind of really just didn't have the economic follow-up. Let's just speed this up big time, because again, like I'm saying, this game at this point is, it's not completely over, but it's just mostly over. It just needs, again, we're losing the relics. And yeah, that orange shot was huge, and yeah, Slam calls the GG. Okay, so I think if you have any takeaways from this, honestly what I would say is if you are taking map control, you need to have a clear idea of what you're going to do, especially if you're going 1TC. So I think usually the best way to use your map control is through a 4 Siege Workshop and Mangonels. Also, you can take map control going through GCs as well. Just remember, if you are taking map control and you feel like your opponent is not showing that much presence on the map, or you feel like you're really confident on the map, you need to be able to kind of identify that. You need to be able to go forward and build a Siege Workshop and punish them. And this game is kind of an example of why you can't let your opponent kind of not build army, because then they just get a huge eco lead. And even though Valas had a terrible Civ matchup and Slam had a really crushing Civ matchup, he still managed to win the game just because of this reason. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why the game is so complex. That's why this decision making is so fun as an expert player. Like, to make these decisions, to make the correct decision, is so hard at times, because obviously it's so finely balanced, right? I think the problem in this game, like I said, Slam just couldn't find the right idea. So yeah, I think that is going to be it. Please let me know what you think of this analysis, and if you want me to do more stuff like this in the future. Obviously this is a bit janky because it is my first time doing it, so please keep that in mind. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.